Thank
Betty,
you, Roberta.
Yeah. So Betty, we can certainly accommodate you, and then we will go to our first item on the agenda as soon as Katie returns for quorum purposes, okay? So tonight, just let's see who we have. Let's go around the room, introduce.
My name is Yadira Jimenez, and I am with Assemblymember Tony Simone's office.
My name is Raul, and I sit on the NYCHA.
And his last name is Lyle.
Everybody.
Hi, everyone, Jessica Che, member of the committee.
Hi, Rachel Lee, committee member as well.
Hello, Hector Vasquez, member of the committee as well. The committee.
Nilda for, community member.
Oh, Renee's good, community member.
Joe Suter, co-chair, Housing and Human Services.
Pete Diaz, Community Board 4 member.
I'm Ana Romero, and I'm a student
At the new school.
at this. I'm Crystal, and I'm a student at the school. Roberta Barnett, member of the committee.
Travis Rogers, public member of the committee.
Paul.
Paul Ames, member of the committee, public member.
Maria.
Yo soy Maria Ortiz. I'm Maria Ortiz. I am co-chair of Housing, Health, and Human Services with Joe.
Agradecido. Gotcha. Wilson.
Hi, Wilson Cano. I'm a member, committee member.
Becky.
Betty McIntosh, committee member.
And last, Aurora.
Hi, I'm Aurora Cruz. I'm a committee member.
Thank you all. So we're going to be joined in a moment by our last committee member, Katie, and she will be up in a second. She's just dealing with the front desk. And Betty, why don't you, we'll start off with you and give us a presentation regarding the Medicare issue with the city retirees.
Okay, if some of you watched the
I'm sorry, Betty, before you speak, let me just do a snippet of my introduction. Because I realize there may be some new members on this virtual meeting, this hybrid meeting, I should say. If you're new to us, welcome. How the meeting runs is the committee members are going to speak first. Then you get a chance to speak. If you would like to speak on a topic that we're discussing that's on our agenda, please raise your hand. In order to do that, there's a raised hand emoji somewhere on your screen. That is how you will speak. Then the conversation comes back to committee members, and we make a decision about whether or not we're going to write a resolution that goes to full board and we vote on it. And that I just wanted to share. And if you've been here before, welcome back.
And there's one more thing to note, that we're now in a hybrid set of meetings, which means both in person and virtually. And the quorum for the committee to do business are only those people, committee board members who are in person. Others who participate, including community board members, that they do not count toward the quorum.
Unless they have
A specific
an approved
excuse, right. So for example, if somebody has a specific health issue or a family issue, but it's approved in advance, so we know that, right?
Yeah, what's that number, the quorum number of?
The quorum number with the new numbers of our committee, Nellie, tell me what our total is. We have new members.
We have 17 members
Okay.
and we need 9.
Yeah, so therefore our quorum is 9.
Is 9.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, have done all that general business out of the way. Let's go to Betty and talking about again the Medicare Advantage issue with city employee retirees.
Okay, thank you. What I'm going to be talking about is that we are urging that city council members vote in favor of Bill 1099, which would offer retirees, New York City retirees, the choice of keeping the existing Medicare plan or signing up for Medicare Advantage plan. The bill would be an amendment to the New York City Administrative Code. Now, our organization, New York City Organization of Public Service Retirees, is supporting this bill so that we could keep our traditional Medicare plan. Because under the Medicare Advantage plan, Access to specialists would be limited. Preventable deaths have occurred from the denial of pre-authorizations. I feel passionately about this because my husband's very sick and requires a team of specialists to address his complex condition. I'm very scared that the mandated Medicare Advantage plan would deny or delay care for him, resulting in dire consequences. My husband and I put in a total of over 78 years of service to the city. And is this the thanks we get? A forced health plan that would be detrimental to us? Anyway, we're very pleased that Eric Botcher and 16 other council members have supported this bill so far, but we need 17 more council members to vote for this bill to make it a veto-proof total of 34. And we like to point out that Community Board 4 is frequently a leader among community boards, and it could be a model in this case. Already, Manhattan Community Board 3 is discussing this issue in committee. So we urge that Community Board 4 send a letter to City Council Speaker Ariane Adams to encourage council members to vote for Bill 1099. And that's my statement about this.
So I think the general background here is that the mayor proposed this idea of introducing Medicare Advantage, and it became an idea, but actually a requirement that individuals were no longer in the New York City retirement system to use traditional Medicare, and it became an imposition. There's been a groundswell of opposition to it, and now we're actually seeing a bill, the city council attempting to modify that for change that was made. Katie.
So I'm just trying to understand, so this new law went into place, or new rule went into place,
Administrative.
and
No?
Well, so right now there's a judicial, my
Oh,
understanding.
no, there's a block on it right now, but I think she's asking the sort of the genesis about happened.
yeah, and I guess I'm trying to understand, is this something that was like, that happened a month ago, that happened 2 years ago, like,
Earlier this year, Betty, right?
Which happened?
No,
The judicial,
no, we're talking about the rule change. When did the rule change happen?
Betty, when did you lose the right to choose the existing Medicare plan?
no, it has not been written in stone yet.
No, Betty, you're not asking a question about what's happened since. When did the city government first act to move city retirees from traditional Medicare to Medicare Advantage?
I don't remember the date.
I believe it was,
no.
my guess is, my understanding, earlier this year, there was a groundswell of opposition, legal actions brought, and there has been, as Roberta noted, a current restraining, an order.
Restraining order to.
Restraining order to block it temporarily as it gets adjudicated. But there's been an incredible, it was looked at as a cost savings measure, and no one really thought about the impacts of it. And now there's been an incredible, think about how many, Betty, would you know offhand how many New York City retirement system retirees we have in the city?
I can't give you that data. Sorry.
Say,
The city has an article that says 250,000 retired public sector workers.
there you go. So there's 250,000 people affected by this. And the idea that no one would respond was sort of a crazy thought. And they have. And it's not like there's an option, it was, you were moved from traditional Medicare to Medicare Advantage, that was it.
And there was a purported reason,
Right.
which I think is probably worth noting, that one, cost savings, but the understanding that I have was that that was also part of union negotiations as well. And so that was negotiated between the unions and the city to get to that point, which is not to say that it was good or bad, simply that it's not like no one thought about this or no one had any.
No, there was a back and forth, but I think the issue is union negotiations were representing current members as opposed to the 250,000 retirees who are directly impacted by this.
But I guess the union is taking the position that they got something or gave up something in order to get.
I don't think the union, well, you know, something we have to get more information.
Yeah, that's
Get more information, but I don't think the union's in a running the flag, just up the flag and waving, saying we should do this now. I think there's been a political fallout, right, Roberta?
I do not have the latest on that. I think that we have not seen like transparent fiscal impact statements that would allow us to determine whether or not this city's complaint that this would be really detrimental to the city's finances are correct. And
So to back up the assertion.
yeah, there's a assertion effectively that not doing this or not moving retirees to the Medicare Advantage system would have detrimental financial effects to the city. I'm not here to substantiate the city's claim there. That is a city claim. There are various elements of data out there. I did want to note both for Maria and Joe that Carla Klein has her hand raised here as well. For when we.
Well, that'll be members of the public are having this. Yes, Rachel.
Betty, so you mentioned that you're in the process of meeting 17 more council members to support the bill. Have you encountered any pushback? And if so, what are the reasons?
Well, there has been some pressure on city council members from various sources. There's union pressure, there's mayoral pressure. There's sort of revenge if you do this kind of pressure. So, I mean, I'm not going to give, I don't have all the specifics, but yes, there has been pressure. But I think this 1099 is a perfect solution, because if you allow people to make their choice, either they keep their traditional Medicare or they can choose the other kind of plan, then that seems very fair that could be a good solution to this issue.
Just a quick follow-up.
Yeah.
That pressure, is that the financial point that Roberta was mentioning? Is that?
Political.
Well, that might be great, the financial.
So let me just.
The union has, and others have, and the mayor has said this is a big financial issue, okay? Others debunk that. Others say no, and it wasn't created by us retirees. We didn't create a financial problem. So it seems very, very unfair to us to put that argument at us. So
I've got some more information that how this thing happened, right? So this was the de Blasio administration making a deal with the Municipal Labor Committee, which represents 102 unions, right? And they voted, the Municipal Labor Committee voted to approve this in March of this year, right? Now the main key issue here is it was for cost savings, but problem is this Labor Committee did not consult with the retirees. And the deal was put in place on September 1st. The retirees hired legal counsel, and the court has granted it's not a restraining order, it's a permanent injunction on making this change. And one of the underlying issues is, it's not as if the change is for new employees prospectively moving forward. That happens a lot in union negotiations. It's going back and changing a benefit that people have. Retroactive. So that's why you have this issue happening. So now it is, city is permanently enjoined from doing this unless the city appeals. So the city probably will appeal. The point of it is, that's where we are in terms of Supreme Court today. What Betty is talking about is now everyone's trying to sit down and figure out how to make this work. So if certain retirees opt, this bill would say if you opt to go into Medicare Advantage, that's fine. But if you choose not to, you stay in that which you knew you were going to get to begin with. So that's sort of a helpful synopsis that sort of like knits it all together.
And then going forward, would anybody joining the union now, would their retired benefit or Medicare be?
I think
Medicare Advantage?
I think this is about a settlement that would happen, and they would try to wrap up all these pieces together, because this has got to go in front of a judge, right? The judge is permanently.
I guess also what I'm trying to understand, it sounds like, and sorry, but Betty, correct me if I'm wrong. So it sounds like there's this legal action happening. And then there's separately, this bill has been proposed. And I guess I'm trying to understand, does the bill only apply to
retirees?
Like currently retirees?
We don't know. They asked that question before I read our letter. we're gonna get we'll get the text of the bill. Betty, can you please make sure you sent to Jesse, the third of the committee, the text of intro 1099,
Okay,
so we can properly reflect this kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
guess I'm just like, I don't know, should we be inviting somebody from the union to come talk to us or somebody from the city? I don't know.
We're being asked by a constituent to support a bill that is currently supported by 16 members of the city council.
Right,
I think a lot of times, yeah, people come and ask to support a bill. We don't ask for 17 other people with different ideas to say yes or no. We say, okay, we'll consider that, we'll talk about it, we'll get information, and then we'll write a letter about it. It's not, we're not like when we ask to support a bill, we're not like a judge and jury kind of stuff. We're asked to say, are you interested or not? I mean, I think what strikes me here is there's an attempt here to try to do something that is more flexible as opposed to an imposition. And that's
theoretically, though, this wouldn't actually go before a judge or anything. This is just about a bill.
all this is. And I'm saying, judge and jury meeting, we don't normally, on deciding to support a bill, we have some advocate come, we support this intro, that intro, get the information, we read it. Like, remember, we had folks come from the land trust stuff, right? They want to support a bill. And we said, okay, interested, whatever, give us more information and come back. We didn't go to the anti-land trust people or say, give us more stuff. The advocates are coming, so we're saying yes, no, maybe, and how, and what is our support?
Yeah. Okay. I think we just want to make sure that we're as informed as possible.
That's having the bills text is what we need to do to answer that kind of
okay,
question.
I will get the text and give it to you and Maria.
Well, please send it to Jesse, so let's send it out to the full committee so we can all look at it, okay?
Full committee, okay, okay.
All aims.
Yeah, make sure I still have my, yeah, right. I'm sorry to say, Betty, I have not studied this particular instance, but are you aware, or is anyone else who has been following it more than I, are you aware of any union or other group who has suddenly had their healthcare changed from traditional Medicare to Medicare Advantage, Medicare Bologna Sandwich, any of the various alternates to Medicare that are out there? Not a lot of people know that they are products, the financial products, the people who sell those products get a commission, et cetera, et cetera. Do you know of any instances, a city
Well,
union?
no, so far, people have not been forced to give up their traditional Medicare. That's what we're talking about now. However, there have been many people, for whatever reason, chose Medicare Advantage. Many of them are very dissatisfied.
What all I've heard.
There have been a lot of complaints. It's even gone up to President Biden, who's here, especially from Texas.
Yeah.
That they're
I think-
complaining about it.
I think there may be some rare cases where there's some but very specific Medicare Advantage or other Medicare not traditional plan that is so tailored to someone's need that it might edge out traditional Medicare. But I haven't heard a lot of those. Mostly what I've heard is what you're just sort of suggesting. Medicare Advantage and other plans like it, they're great as long as you don't ever get sick.
Right. And it's private, it's privatization. That's what it is.
Yeah.
And it's a whole other philosophy of doing healthcare.
Well, I just got an email today from the mayor giving me his phone number. I think I'll call him up and ask him, how much money is this plan going to save the city? Because it must be huge. Well, maybe it's not huge, but it's enough to line someone's pocket, I'm sure.
The claim is $600 million a year. That's very widely stated, and the city has stated, the municipal labor council, so the unions have stated that part of that would go to supporting new higher salary and benefits. So that is at least part of the rationale for this, which is, again, not to take a position, just to explain why anyone would bother doing something so terrible to retirees.
Right. Let's go around the room and get some thoughts or opinions, starting with Raul.
No, Rachel asked my question and it was answered, so I'm okay.
Roberta, thoughts?
I think it's very difficult situation that to be in. I don't want retirees to lose their plan. I understand why the municipal labor council and the city are doing what they're doing. But I don't feel very I'm uncertain at whether or not the committee ought to write a letter because there is such technical complexity here. I absolutely want to see hearing on this bill. I think it's important that, we get more information and I want to see it advance. But I'm really, I think it's a really, really difficult decision and I feel terribly for all of the retirees. Because I really think, it's very obvious the negative impacts, but it's just very tough.
Katie?
I guess I would have another question, which is simply, if this bill is passed, then does this negotiated agreement that apparently was made with the union and the city, would new employees now not get higher salaries, or would they have to renegotiate that whole thing? So I guess I feel like there's more information that's needed. And I love the idea of supporting a hearing on it, because clearly it's a complex issue and I want to hear from all parties. So I guess I support a letter from us saying this really has to be looked at more, and we encourage the city council to have a hearing about this bill. It sounds really important, but we want to understand the pros and cons.
Okay, Pete?
I had a personal issue on this because my mother recently died, April 6th. I'm sure it'll be 96. During the pandemic, she was actually dropped completely, and we couldn't figure out why. And she had ambulance, and she was a retired social worker. I didn't know who to reach out to. It was very, very difficult. I'm wondering how many other retirees have been dropped completely, and their family members don't even. Now, that's from a personal
Direction, right.
experience. Completely dropped.
So in terms of writing letter of support for this bill, would you be in favor or against?
Yes, I would be in favor.
Hector?
As everybody else has mentioned, it's a really complicated issue. I mean, I don't like the idea of retirees or new employees being strong-armed into a new, well, not a new program, but a medical insurance program that obviously is lacking in some regards, whereas Medicare is already not that great as it is, but it is better than what's being offered moving forward. It's just it's already difficult to navigate all this, and as Pete said, it gets really complicated when you find out that you don't even have the coverage, or if you do procedure, it's not even covered under insurance. So I think it goes a lot deeper into the complications of figuring it all out in the different plans. Honestly, I think the retirees shouldn't be affected by this. I mean, honestly, they should keep the original plan that they had. It's not fair that they be strong-armed into a new plan like this. Like, they worked all those lives, and this is what was promised to them. You should be entitled to that. But I also don't believe that new hirees should be shortchanged as well for a new plan that might not even be as good as the old one.
So you would support the bill, which gives people a choice to say traditional Medicare or Medicare?
Right, exactly.
Rachel?
First of all, Betty, thank you for bringing this issue to our attention. I admittedly am hearing this for the first time. I don't like the sound of it. I sympathize with Pete, with your mother and your husband, and having dealt with Medicaid for my mother, and I imagine at some point in the future, Medicare. I know that messing with people's health insurance is no joke. And I hate the sound of people being dropped without communication. As many of you noted, this is complicated, but I think that's where we can come in handy. I would be happy to offer, my legal review skills or whatever, look at the text of the bill, help draft some portion of the letter, whatever, but I would be in favor of helping write a letter. Thanks.
Jessica?
I mean, I am struggling only because I do not feel sufficiently informed. However, I think there's an opportunity to write a letter that suggests that we stand with the retirees and want to make sure that their healthcare is maintained and that they some minimum threshold of what they, have received. I do feel challenged by not having all of the facts, and clearly, as was said, it's a very complicated issue. So I'd like to see if there's, and I think calling for a hearing and for more information and support of retirees. Like without a full-throated, we endorse 1099, which we're not asking endorse it specifically, but I think kind of stopping before we.
Well, I think supporting the idea of retirees having a choice. I think, because I think that's the crux of this matter here. I don't know how 1099 exactly worded,
Exactly.
but I think
So
people should not be
that's-
forced, they should have a choice.
That I would be.
Travis?
I fully support writing the letter and supporting the bill. I find it a bit ironic that the government solution to underpaying the current employees is to take money away from employees they previously underpaid, to take their benefits away from them when they're most vulnerable. I think that is a complete slap in the face. And as someone whose parent worked for the federal government, she was lucky to be grandfathered in to old policies, so she's never had to take any of these strikes that current federal government employees had to deal with. So I fully support grandfathering folks in and giving them choice. So I support you, Betty.
Wilson?
I'm not fully, like, I've read a couple of things on, recently in the news about this, and so I don't know all of the information, but I do, agree with Travis about, providing support for retirees and giving them choice.
Paul?
Sorry. Sorry, no, I'm sorry. Well, yes, I'm fully in favor of a letter and a hearing and anything else. Again, I'd love to, along with the if anyone can dig up any stats on any place where this choice or when a new plan like this was shoved down anyone's throat, did anyone ever think that was a great idea? And just curious, again, I'm just sort of curious if $600 billion is the total to be saved, is that before or after someone gets a great big whopping commission on it? It's commissionable stuff when they sell these, that's it. So I'd like to have that commissionable amount of money paid to the new employees. I don't like two-tier employees, but it happens these days. Don't like it. It's bad union thinking, I think. That's all. But I'm in favor, obviously, of a letter and a hearing, and I want Betty's husband to have his plan. Damn it.
Thank you.
Aurora?
I'm in favor of a letter. I want to echo what Travis said. I heard it. I thought it was very eloquently put. The government solution is to take away from, people who have vested their time and their effort into positions to give to other people. It's a very interesting problem. So yes, I'm very much in favor of a letter and a hearing.
Thank you. And then we have one member of the public. Can you bring over Carla Fine to speak on this matter? Nellie?
Joe?
Oh, I'm sorry. No, I didn't speak, Maria, I didn't speak either because I want us to talk at the end. No, same thing. I didn't forget about you. Carla, please go ahead, speak on this matter. You have to unmute.
Okay, can you hear me? I'm sorry you can't see me, but can you hear me?
Carla, we can hear you just fine.
Okay, so thank you very much for this. I just want to clear up one thing. The $600 million will not have anything to do with the city budget. The $600 million goes to the Health Stabilization Fund, which pays for raises for the current teachers union, which is a very complicated thing that happened in 2014, but everything you can see on New York City retirees.org. And the lie, what we've been hearing, is that this is going to the city budget. It is not. This is going to a health stabilization fund, which has nothing to do with the city budget. Number one. Number two, people will die on this plan because Medicare Advantage, the one they want to force us into. I'm a New York City retiree. I worked at Bellevue for 20 years and I'm still a volunteer there. Medicare Advantage is run by CVS Aetna, which has poured $500,000 into this campaign to get this big contract from the city. And basically what Medicare does, and when you're on traditional Medicare, which is run by the government, which comes out of every one of your paychecks that you and all of us have paid into, When your doctor thinks you need an MRI, when your doctor thinks you need a stent, when your doctor even thinks you need eye cataract surgery, they make a prescription and you get it. Under Medicare Advantage, everything needs pre-approval, not from a doctor, but from the Aetna Insurance Company. They are currently under investigation by the Department of Justice for people who are dying under their plan. Now, you get some benefits, you know, you get maybe a free meal or something like that, and people have all the right in the world to join if they want to. But 2 years ago, August 2021, we received a letter that we were being forced into, without a choice, Medicare Advantage plan. And without going into tons of detail, for the past 2 years, we've been fighting this to say that, and we've won every single court case. And every time we win the case, the city, we've won 3 court cases so far. And every time we win, the city appeals. So what we did is we went to the city council with a bill introduced by Council Member Barron, 1099, to codify legislation 12612, which is from 65 years ago, from Mary Pinkett, who put this in 65 years ago when Medicare just started, which allows retirees to have Medicare. So this bill is just it's 2 sentences, you will see. It basically says that if we want to have Medicare, we can have Medicare. And then it has nothing to do with collective bargaining. So I just want to add this. I'm a writer. I've written 10 books, mostly on mental health. And I'm writing a book now on senior grief. And I cannot tell you how many calls I have gotten from seniors and retired New York City workers across this city. And in other parts of the country, they are terrified because if you're a doctor, think of every one of you who goes to a doctor and all of a sudden you find out they're not in the network of Aetna. You have to go to an Aetna doctor. And some people have been going to their doctors for years. They've been going to their hospitals for years. And in addition, I've been getting calls from family members, because if you live in a continuing care facility, they do not take Medicare Advantage. So you'll be kicked out, or your mother and father will be kicked out. And this is terrible. And this is a terrible situation. The people that have started the New York City Retirees Association, headed by Mariana Pisatola, they are all union people. They are strong union people. This is not non-union people. These are union people that feel betrayed by their unions, who are the MLC and the city came up with this deal and pulled the rug out of many people, as Betty is mentioning and other people are mentioning. And then all of a sudden they find out there's something. And there's one more point, and then I'll close. We're supposed to be a progressive city. We're supposed to be a progressive city council. Why do we support diminishing Medicare? Why are we supporting a conservative MAGA Republican agenda to get rid of Medicare and privatize? Because Medicare Advantage is run by private insurance companies. The CEO makes $28 million a year and base their decisions on what's good for their stockholders and not what's good for their customers. Thank you very much. A letter would be very much appreciated. And we're going to every single community board. I'm a member, I'm a long-term Chelsea resident. As a matter of fact, my husband is Alan Oster, who's on the board. But I just want to say that we're going to every single community board. We've already gotten 17 city council people to support us. It's also going to the state assembly. Tony Simone is supporting us. And we want to almost make this a national issue too. If people were not to, because the Medicare Advantage companies, I think Paul has mentioned this, it's to their benefit to get rid of Medicare, because Medicare Advantage has nothing to do.
I'm sorry, this is Maria, co-chair of Housing, Health and Human Services. If you could just wrap up your comments.
I'm wrapped up. All I ask is your support. Seniors in the city are terrified, they're scared, and we deserve to just keep our Medicare, keep our doctors, and keep our hospitals. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Carla. Maria,
Thank you, Carla.
your thoughts?
Seniors have a special place in my heart. And I don't think we hold them in esteem enough in society and in our culture. That's my personal thing aside. And I also know that when it comes to the budget for the city, like seniors get the lowest amount. I think it's called, I forgot the name of the agency. Joe, you would remember, I can't remember right now.
Farmers to the aging.
Thank you. Get some of the lowest funds. So thinking about this, and I worked for the city for 10 years. So I do think that this is a kind of a complex topic, but that's what we do often. We deal with things that are kind of complex. I do feel like we need more information. However, if we are just writing a letter that's saying, offering retirees choice, I would definitely support that.
Thank you, Maria. So I manage health benefits for 12 members of my family as they pass away. Really one hell of an experience, both Medicare and private. And I will tell you that the private stuff was unbelievably insane and difficult to get very simple things set up and pre-approval and all kinds of stuff. It's like a full-time job. I had cousins helping me manage other people, like aspects of it. That's how complex it was. And I did the same thing for a couple of my neighbors. So I think now that we understand that this bill is merely 2 sentences or 3 sentences saying it provides choice, the broader issues of how the city made a choice, the labor committee, all that kind of stuff, I think we can support as a community board, and I've heard enough on the table to get a sense of it, that we would support 1099 simply because once we verify the text, we have to do that, obviously, right? Because it supports a choice. It's not saying you must do this or you must do that. Is you can keep Medicare or choose something else. So I think we would offer that. I think we should offer that as a simple letter. And I would ask that Rachel and maybe Katie can work on some of the detail. Roberta, would you prefer for Katie?
Sorry.
In terms of drafting a letter, I think.
I'm open. I also have the text of interest 99.
Oh, could you read it out? That's
So
fantastic.
there is a whereas that I'm just going
Yeah,
to
no,
resolve.
yes, yeah.
In order to preserve retiree healthcare choice, the city shall offer Medicare eligible city retirees and their Medicare eligible dependents at least one Medigap plan with benefits equivalent to or better than those available to city retirees and their dependents as of December 31st, 2021. Nothing in this subdivision shall be construed to impair the ability of any employee organization to negotiate the terms and conditions of employment for their employee members. And this is available. I'm happy to send this to Jesse, but
Yes.
to circulate it.
So this is a very piece of straightforward text. It's saying you must be able to have that choice, right? It's not like it's this game.
Is it saying that anybody right now working for the city, or if you ever join the union and you're working for the city, that you get something that was at least as good as what happened in 2021, or is it saying only the people who are already a retiree can keep
It's
something?
already retired at this point.
Yes.
Yes.
So if we're talking about existing retirement.
So it's basically saying it's they want a grandfather.
Yes,
They want a grandfather in choice, but anything going forward for non-retirees can be negotiated. Is that it?
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty straightforward thing, right? Okay, so,
And do we agree though that we're like encouraging a hearing?
oh no, I think we support the bill, encourage hearing, encourage people to sign on, to get on into it. So, I mean, I'm restating someone made this actual motion, but is that the sort of the gist of what we got? Can I get a nod from the members?
That's a motion, I second.
I can't make the motion as the co-chair, but would you like to make the motion, Mr. Vargas?
Just what you just said. Motion, second.
Is there a second? Yes, Pete. So then, all those in favor of that motion be drafted of that letter to be drafted by Rachel and Katie, please raise your hand in the room. Please raise your hand virtually. It is unanimous.
I'm abstaining.
That's unanimous. One of them.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Okay.
Thank
you.
Wait,
Moving on
I'm
to our next
sorry,
item.
Joe, did you say that was unanimous?
No, it is all those present with one abstention. I'm gonna talk about this in one moment, okay? Is that, remember that we have to have 9 for a quorum. We don't have a quorum, we have 8. So whatever letter we write will be written and drafted by the committee and then presented as new business at the October meeting, right? So
I didn't understand, we don't have quorum?
we don't have a quorum in person. Only if you're in this room, you must be 9 people. Yeah, here's not a
That's
mess.
the.
I have
Oh,
a pre-approved,
You have a
Yes.
pre-approved. We have a
Yes.
quorum then. Is
yes.
that correct, Nellie? Nellie, give us the ruling there.
I'm
There
sorry,
is a
say
counter.
it again.
Wilson has a pre-approved absence, but working remotely because of a health issue, right?
Yes,
Does he count for a quorum?
I will need to confirm.
All right, and that's by the what? No,
We have 8 in the room.
8 in the room.
We need that.
My understanding is you have to be in person.
Quorum. Come on.
Regardless of whether or not you have a excused absence.
That is
Anything,
my
Katie?
understanding, yes.
Vert?
So what Nellie just said was that her understanding is that in order to vote, regardless of whether you have some sort of exemption, be for health or other reason, that you.
Quorum is still based
Quorum
on-
is just in the room.
Right, so that's it. In other words, if Nellie verifies that now, it's fine, but we can still redact it, right? It still goes as new business, it doesn't come from the committee, it says new business. We'll bring it up at the exec committee. But thank you everyone for participating on this matter. Thank you, Betty, for bringing it to us. Thank you, Carla, for your clear representation of what's happening.
I'm a bit confused about this quorum thing.
You're gonna be confused for a while because it's about all of freely told, this whole thing, and we're trying to figure it out and get it right every time.
That makes sense, that somebody gets an excused absence from being physically, and then they don't count the quorum.
We're on our second in-person meeting, so give us a few moments to work through this and get the details, and we'll write it down properly. And figure it out. It's just, we're all like, just, you know. And by the way, there really is an answer. Yes, there's a real answer, but what do we know? We're just working it through.
Understood.
Right. So let's go to our next item, which is 410, 412 West 46th Street. And Nellie, who do we have from the public that's going to be presenting on this? Jordan, would you know? Oh, David Stewart's here. I see his name. Can you bring over David Stewart and bring over Jordan Finer, please?
Yes, I'll move them over now.
So while they're on their way over, let me give the committee members a quick synopsis of this building. 410, 412 West 46th Street has been an ongoing troubled set of buildings in our neighborhood for a number of years now. It was purchased by a speculative owner. The owner converted some of the units to Airbnb. There were horrible conditions with Airbnb. Then the owner did not manage to take care of the buildings. There was a fire in 412, a disastrous fire. Tenants were temporarily moved out of 412 into 410 West 46th Street. And these owners basically have stopped paying their mortgages. They are not in the buildings. There has been a 7A proceeding, Article 7A. That's where the HPD brings a case to a point. It is that they bring a case that they have to demonstrate there has been a hazardous conditions for people living there for 5 days in a row. That's as much more than 5 days, right? And the court will then appoint a temporary administrator to take the management of the property away from the owner. Yes, you do.
Can we have Ben Lowenstein over as well, because he's a part of it?
Yeah, then come on over to bring Ben over. So this is the most like severe action HPD can take. Takes away the full management control from the building, from the owner. No, that legal action is ongoing, right? But I want to make it clear, and then Dave will speak to it, Jordan will speak to it. Members of this committee, our community board has been involved for, I don't know, 2 years, Jordan? 2.5 years?
I don't remember the exact date, but I remember it was January of 2021 that we got an email from Department of Buildings basically saying that they were coming to demo 412 West 46th Street, which obviously hasn't happened, and it's been shored up by DOB and HPD and is not at risk of being demoed. But I remember vividly that is the first time I heard of these addresses. So it's been almost 2 years at this point, certainly.
And David Stewart from the Block Association has been involved like a shiny knight on a horse for literally a couple of years on this one. And I want to know, the community board has undergone many visits, inspections with city officials, elected officials, with HPD, with the Department of Buildings. There have been screaming matches on the street in front of this building. I participated myself, David was there, Jordan was there, where we went with NYPD and we literally chased squatters out of the building. Apartments were left open, people were living there were pipes broken, there were drug activity. Like, I mean, this is a free-for-all, wild, open thing, while you at the same time have very long-term tenants who are living there. And like, is the man in his 90s still alive, Jordan?
I don't know. I'm not too sure. I haven't had too much interaction with him before recently, so I couldn't say
But
that.
I mean, very active, very simple tenants. So
Yeah.
let's just turn it over. And also, the tenants have been horribly harassed here. Horribly harassed by supers, owners, managers, an ongoing process. It is truly, I would say, many years, one of our worst buildings in our district with conditions and with tenant harassment. So let me turn it over to David and you'll present and other folks will add. Is that a good stage setting? Good.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Pardon me 1 second, guys. Somebody's knocking at my door. Jordan, can you speak? I'll be back in 1 minute. Apologize.
Sure. No, I can certainly vamp for a minute, but I definitely want to open the floor for David. But no, Joe, I'd say that's very good table setting. Definitely, we've been, working on this, and at least for me, there isn't an address that inspires more. Just exhaustion's the wrong word, but
Exhaustion is the correct word.
Yes, well, it's been ongoing for quite some time. We host a bi-weekly action team meeting that I'm sure David will speak more to. That includes Jesse's on those calls, myself, Ben, Yadira, Natalie, David, Marisa Radanti, the district leader, Mark Natanawan from HCC, as well as tenants from the building. So we are in pretty constant communication. Those meetings have been ongoing since January. And yeah, there have been numerous times we've gone to the building. There have been some changes, and the main thing is we're now waiting for HPD, not for HPD, for the judge in this 7A case to make their final ruling. They visited the building on March 31st. David, am I correct in that date? And that was sort of the close.
May 31st.
May 31st, excuse me. I gave them a couple of months. May 31st, that was the close of the court case, and we were supposed to hear a ruling on the 7A, whether the city would administer appointed administrator or not. And we're still waiting to hear. So, that's something we're definitely knocking on doors at HPD about. Unfortunately, it's out of HPD's hands. It's out of our hands. It's in the judge's hands at this point. And so that's really what we're waiting for. But David, I know you probably will have more to say on this, and I'll open the floor to you, please.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Joe, for the intro to everything, and Jordan for filling that in. So, yeah, I think what we're looking for, right? There's two kind of critical.
David, say where you're from.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm the president of the 45th and 46th Street Block Association. So I think there's two things we're really looking for. I think the first is despite the fact that this is a slumlord, literally the worst slumlord in the city, based on Giovanni Williams' list that came out earlier this year. He owns dozens of buildings. So I think one thing we're looking for is the tenants are in a constant state of harassment. So they've gone through fires and floods, and I mean, literally, this is not, I know this sounds biblical, but this is all legit. So the roof is caved in, floods, water has been streaming down from the roof through the apartments down into the lobby of the building multiple times. So I think what we're looking for is a letter to the owners to stop the harassment. Right now, there is a super who doesn't really do anything, confronts the tenants. They feel at risk just leaving their apartment due to the super. There's a number of issues that I can go into, but Joe kind of like summarized those. So I think first thing is just a letter about the harassment. And then I think the bigger thing that I kind of understand, but I also don't understand, is that HPD is a broken agency. This court case has taken almost 2 years. Nobody could give us any kind of a date about like how long it would take, whatever. The judge now has been, since May 31st, that case is wrapped up. It's now in the judge's hands to make a decision. And we do not have any information about when a possible decision might come down. HPD, they didn't come to this meeting. They don't come to any of our meetings. They don't answer any questions about what you can expect. And in the meantime, people's lives are legitimately at risk. These guys who live in this building, no shit, have PTSD. Every time they hear a noise, every time something breaks, they wonder, how long is it going to be again before somebody comes and makes sure that whatever water is leaking onto my kitchen with that black sludge, when is that going to cleaned up? What is it? Is it toxic? Who the hell knows? There is an apartment 1A on the first floor that we went into at one of the walkthroughs that Joe mentioned. And one of the inspectors looked at it and said, this is an imminent danger of fire. We had been trying for over 1.5 years to get that single apartment, that fire risk abated, cannot do it. And you know why? Because there's a lock on the door from the landlord. So people's risk of being burned alive is stopped by the city because of a goddamn lock on a door. So I think those the two things we're looking for is a letter to the landlord, to the slumlord, to stop the harassment, and it should go to the slumlord, the super who lives in the building, and then some kind of letter or some kind of something to Commissioner Caron from HPD about like what is really happening in his team. We, just for some background, and then I'll shut up and people can ask questions, but just as some background, there was another fire. Some squatters broke into 410, started a fire in the basement, 3 fire trucks, a captain, cops came out, they put it out. But that fire just happened to coincide with a 2-day deluge in the city of rain, which meant that the water was leaking through the building into the basement. If that rainstorm hadn't been there, all of that stuff would have been dry kindling. And let me tell you that the wood in that building is 100 and something, whatever, how old it is, it's like, goes up like that. So if that hadn't happened, that would have been a disaster. That building would have gone up, people could have died, it could have affected other buildings. That fire would have been far worse because it would have just been a conflagration. There's nothing to stop it. There's open floors for multiple floors. So I don't know what the commissioner's doing, but in our meeting, we specifically told him that this one building has hundreds of summonses. We have just the community itself has put in hundreds of person hours. Jordan's, Botcher's office has put in dozens and dozens and dozens of hours. HPD, DOB, Joe, other people have put in hundreds of hours. The amount of money that this one building is costing the city, has to be in the six figures. If you multiply that by the 30 buildings or 30 odd buildings that this one slumlord owns, and he has other buildings on 45th Street and up on 76th Street that are also slum buildings. Multiply that by his 30 buildings and then multiply it by the 30 worst slumlords in the city, and you're talking hundreds of buildings, tens of thousands of residents, and probably millions of dollars. So when Carry On says, we don't have money, we don't have the personnel, we don't have the time, if you solve the damn problem here, you're freeing up millions of dollars. So I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what that guy is doing. I've met him, he seems dynamic. He also seems like he just kind of flies in, says some bullshit, and then flies out.
I think, let's take it down from there a little bit.
So like, yeah, but I'm just saying that there's bigger issues here, but those are the two things. So I'm sorry for droning on, but I'll leave it there.
No, I do also, I super quick, Joe, I want to just to the fire risk as well. HPD has installed, so at 410, which is the building that had the fire in the basement, they've installed sort of these, for lack of a better term, metal cages in front of it to not allow for squatters to get into that stairwell area, to get into the basement area, to get into that building, which is also boarded up. And then at 412, there were issues with the front door, which was letting squatters in, not locking. It's been fixed and is locking at present. So, at 410, excuse me, yes. 412 has the metal cages, 410 has the fix. So HPD has stopped the entry from squatters and other things like that, but there is still these fire concerns that we have, and we've brought these to FDNY as well, and there are discussions that we have at the 2-week meeting. So yes.
So I just want to put in context too, we're not talking about a lack of attention to trying to solve the problems of these two buildings. The state senator, Brett Roman, has been there. State member Tony Simone has been there. Borough President Mark Levine has been to the site. The commissioner of HPD, Adolfo Carrion, has been to the site, right? The issue we have two issues. One is, I think, rightly, we should be writing to the owner and copying the super saying cease tenant harassment. I'm on these weekly meetings and the notes and whatever, and people are being stopped in the halls. Like tenants are being stopped and harassed. So we have to say, stop it. Because again, we're in a special zoning district that if you are found to be guilty of tenant harassment, there are even heavier consequences to you at the same time. The issue we have with the 7A proceeding, right, is that is not HPD running it, it's the court. HPD brings the proceeding. I will say upfront, I have never seen in my career, and I'm on my 43rd year, a 7A proceeding take this long. I've never seen it. So HPD was very slow in making it move along, but now it's in the court. So I'm going to suggest instead of writing to HPD, we write to the chief administrative judge of the civil court, specifically noting that the trial, Jordan and Ben, you can get us this information when the trial started, when it ended, and that there still has not been a decision. And we're talking about people's health, hazard, life and living. Let me make it very clear. It is danger. It is dangerous to live in this building. I've been in this building many, many times, and it is not a pleasant place to be. And we want to really encourage the chief administrative judge to assist the trial part judge to issue an order on the 7A, because that will not change the world, but it'll start a change, because there's a lot to do here. When David talked about those apartments, the apartments were damaged by water, partially gutted, squatters ripping things out. There's a lot of work to do here. Paul, you have a question? Oops, then Travis. Paul, you're on.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, just quickly, I'm sorry, this is not really the point, but sometimes it helps. May we know the name of this deadbeat landlord owner? It's not Steve Cromer, is it? Oh no, I hoped it was. Who is it?
It's the Daniel Oba Shalom. So it's the Oba Shalom brothers. And there's also Robin Ignico, I believe, is the more direct manager that they work with. Yes.
And they're based on the West Coast, right?
Yes, that's correct. I think they're based out of California.
A new one. Okay, thank you.
Well, Of course, you would buy a New York City occupied tenement to run a legal hotel and harass tenants. That's, you know, to make money. Travis. You.
It went back. I'm sorry. I just want to note also in the letter where it says it poses a health risk to those people that are in the building and residents. This also poses a health and safety risk to the neighborhood if it's such a higher risk. So our whole neighborhood is at risk here. And so we need these landlords out and we need the city to intervene as soon as possible.
Is that acceptable, folks? I'm sorry, Roberta.
I did just want to, because I was reading the letter and it says in one place, 30 units of rent stabilized housing and then 15 in another. Is it 15 and 15?
Yes, 15 and 15, yes.
Okay, and then there's no interest, at least at this point in time, in talking about harassment cures of any.
There cannot be a cure until someone files. Right. And in fact, there was an attempt that happened for this building to be sold and a new owner to come in. Just remember this whole thing when the new owner actually spent money and shored up 412, and then that prospective owner could not consummate a deal with the Upsilon brothers. So I mean, like this is a saga. So just to Jordan and to David and Ben, is that okay that we write to that the focus needs to be now owner, but also to the court, because they're the ones who need to do this with the 7A administrator. HPD is in the same position you're in. But okay?
That, I mean, I certainly can't speak for the others, but I think that sounds fine to me. I will say, you know, it's been somewhat frustrating with HPD, certainly, but they have done work to shore up the building that was going to be demoed with DOB. They haven't come to our 2-week meetings, but they've been in contact with myself and with other elected officials reps on those calls as well. So I don't have any qualms with that. But David, I see you've got your hand up as well.
Yeah, no, I think, Joe, that's a great idea to go to the court. Definitely didn't think of that. Not to put more work on the committee, but I think that it might also be worth writing a letter to HPD, because like I've been involved in this for 2 years as a community member because of the grave concerns here and the lack of action, and it's just kind of appalling. So I'd really love to know, like, maybe there's a way to write a letter where we can just say, what is the explanation for why this stuff is occurring? I don't know the exact wording. I'm just kind of like riffing right now, but I would love to write a letter like that.
I'm trying to get out of the existential mode because we know that stuff is not happening. I think we can do one thing though. We could write them a short letter documenting that this has just taken too long. That to me is a very simple thing to do. Yes?
It might also be appropriate to CC them on the administrative.
Yeah, that's right.
Because they're in a sense.
Oh, no, I think everyone should get, yeah.
So, and I don't know if that would help accomplish what David is speaking about, making sure that HPD is understanding of the problem, the delays.
In the end of the day, the community and the tenants are in a hazard situation. And it's taken way too long. And we have had many issues like this before. And I've never, and I will say this, I have never seen this take this long. Ever.
Yeah, so, yeah, I think there needs to be 3 letters.
Yeah.
I do think.
We have lots of writing in this book, so that won't be that hard. It's a lot of documentation.
I do think, we have to be thoughtful about how we approach a letter to an administrative judge, because the fact of the matter is.
Oh, no, it's gotta be just, here's what it is, and we need, because it's.
There's a great deal of concern, we're worried about a lot of.
Hazard, safety, no, this is, you don't do it. You don't do someone over the head to bluntly piss off the trial court judge.
Exactly.
It's more like, we really need you to assist and work to get to a final decision.
We understand that it's.
And the housing court has 10,000 back, there's 10,000 backup cases in that, has like, just give them their due, but then say, help us, please.
Yeah.
So let's flip it around the room. Is that, no? We're done?
Yeah.
No, is we getting nods from people that was sitting up? How about on the screens there? Nods, yes. Okay, so
Yes, I
again,
sort of have a question. I'm just curious for Roberta's thought about what I did hear. Roberta, regarding a letter to HPD, I think what I heard you say was it sounds better just to CC.
no, to CC letters back and forth. Once the court goes to HPD and, right?
Oh, I
That's what you said.
was not suggesting that we write a third letter. I'm agnostic to that point. I was simply suggesting that the letter going to the administrative judge have HPD CC'd. If the committee believes that it is, and the presenters believe it would be helpful, write that third letter as opposed to just the two. I'm not opposed to it, just that was not my intention.
I would think the three of them, because the one to HPD is not, it's like a lot of copy and paste on this whole thing that we can do.
I do have one question.
Yes.
Have any of the tenants filed a lawsuit against the?
The tenants, the 7(a) seating was brought to protect the tenants.
Okay.
Oh, no, and there have been multiple sorts of actions all the way through housing part action.
Emotional distress and.
No, it's not that kind of stuff. It's actions that do repairs. And the city has gone in this building and done repairs and charged the owner. I mean, there's like hundreds of thousands of dollars of work that's been done. That when this building is sold, it has to be paid. So I mean.
Yeah, and that's, sorry, Joe, to interrupt, but that's on both buildings. The work that they did at Fort 12 to shore up the roof to make sure that it's not demoed. All that work is getting billed to the owner. The scaffolding that was up and has since been removed, that's all getting billed as well. So both the work that's been done at Fort 10, where the tenants are residing, and Fort 12, which is the abandoned building, that's getting charged to the owner. Per my
So you know, charge meaning charge as part of their tax bill. So it's not like it's charged and not pay, it's on their tax bill. So, and it accrues 24% interest. Paul? Huh?
Yeah, Joe.
Lien is the taxes. Yes.
Joe, my question was to you, since the invention of our lovely Clinton Special District, what's the most egregious price put on a deadbeat tenant landlord? We've had so many, and is this about as bad as it gets? I'm just sort of curious. I know we've had a lot more than our share of them, but what else, aside from holding up a potential sale until complaints and violations and harassment is wiped clean? What is this? How close is this to being about as bad as it gets?
This is getting equivalent to 400 West 57th Street, the Windermere, where harassment like this. And the ultimate penalty here is when whoever buys this building seeks to renovate it, they will end up with an investigation leading to a finding of harassment, leading to a cure for harassment. And that's the ultimate penalty. You lose 28% of the square footage of the building for permanently affordable housing. That's what's going to happen here. There's no question. We had many owners like this before in the mid 80s and 90s, owned multiple buildings, traded them back and forth. And that's, so I think we have a plan here. I'm getting nods for the three of those. Yes. Okay. So Jordan and David, thank you. And Ben, thank you very much.
Joe, can I just add one more quick thing?
Yes.
Yeah, I think for like just the letter to the court, the court action was brought, like, as you were saying, Joe, to protect the tenants. In the letter, what I would just simply ask is like, when it takes this long, the tenants are at risk. And it's kind of defeating the purpose with them not having any kind of information. So it's just
we would never say that in that way, but we would say something that it's an ongoing risk to the tenants and their health and safety, because that's the 7(a) case is about protecting the health and safety of people in the building. So, we have to be, and I think as Katie noted, very carefully word a letter to administrative judge so it has the right impact in this case. Okay, so we got
thanks
this.
everybody.
Okay, and now we're since hours late.
We need to motion for.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Yes,
please.
I would motion to write the 3 separate letters, one to the administrative judge, one to HPD, and another to the owner, memorializing all of the various concerns that we've heard tonight. Is that?
Yeah. And second? Everyone raising their hands in the room, please, and in the virtual. Thank you so much, and thank you folks for coming to present. Thank you, David Stewart, for sticking with this and doing also. Thanks,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody. Have a good night.
Super quickly, I want to just thank everyone on the 2-week action team. Jesse Bodine's been fantastic, but really thank you to the tenants for their bravery and everything that they've done throughout this entire process. It's about them, and we want to get them to a much better place. So thank you to the board as well for these letters.
We're gonna go to a similar circumstance now, because given the hour, we're not gonna touch the budget. We'll leave that for October. And I am gonna turn it over to Raul, and to note, you have to give us the Cliff Notes version of 353 West 57th Street, because it is again a similar kind of building, not to the violent. It's very difficult, but it is not people stopping you in the halls and pouring water through you on, like, I mean, fire, nothing like that.
But it's still depressing to hear what's happening in that building, because I'm afraid, could the Hudson Hotel end up there?
I think the owner of the Hudson Hotel is not, believe it or not, it's all a matter of degree. And
He's not a slum.
right,
They are
compared
not
to these people who are no regard for humanity, different story. So Raul, please present, give us the location, where we are, everything.
Well, Nellie, were you able to open up the PowerPoint?
Presentation, right? Nellie, can you show the PowerPoint?
Give me just 1 second.
I'm curious about this somehow.
Well, it is. After hearing what's going on in this zone, that it's gonna be child's play.
Yeah, it is real.
But there are some concerns. Sure.
You'll have it up in a second.
We could, I mean,
I'm not sure. Nellie might have problems.
Nellie, are you able to bring it up?
I'm having issues opening it. I'm sorry. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
In the meantime, so you guys,
Should we try it here?
if we can I can take a look and see if we can bring it up, because it won't affect the online screen.
Be careful, all creating traffic.
Wow, it's
Raul, what's the address again? I forgot.
353 West 57.
Okay.
There's also an entrance on the West 58th Street.
There we go.
So Nellie, we have it in the room if it's okay for us to screen share.
Sure, if you have it open, sure, you can share. I'm gaining access right now.
Skip for now, go back to the Zoom on the upper right.
So,
Oh my God.
So.
Oh dear Lord.
Actually, Nellie,
Just say accept.
No, there's, yeah. Okay. For five
Free
days.
pass.
Can I sign in with my?
We have it already, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Done, okay, now go back to, get to that today. Yeah, now go to share,
Where is it?
agree. And there you go. Yeah,
Fantastic.
and we got it, full screen.
All right.
Do full screen on the bottom, lower left. Yeah,
Can everybody on Zoom see it?
Yes.
I can see it.
Okay, everybody can see it? Okay, well, this is, it's no longer known as the Hudson Hotel, it's now just a building, right? It's just a residential building right now. And the reason I wanted to bring it to you guys' attention is because we're talking about the possible loss of 24 affordable housing units. 20 of them were vacant before the owner bought the building. And 4 became vacant during the time of transition because those neighbors passed away at that time. I wanted, one of the things that is really important is to understand the timeline of what happened.
First, could you tell us, the building is between 58 and 57th streets,
Yes,
and how many units originally were in the building?
the hotel had close to 1,000 hotel rooms,
Right.
900 and change.
Before it was a hotel, it was a SRO
Yes, that's before my time.
for
And-
many decades.
Yes,
And
it was owned by Channel 13,
Right.
part of it, and then the hospital, the St. Luke's Hospital owned
It was
it.
housing, it was a,
Housing for nurses. So it's gone through several.
but it had a long history of housing and
Yes,
then became a high-end boutique hotel.
correct. Ian Schrager from Studio 54 fame bought it
Yeah,
and converted it into a high-end boutique hotel.
and even though it was converted, all long-term tenants stayed there, many of whom had to go through
Yes.
renovation, hotel renovation.
that is
And then had to go through, even more important, a major club and restaurant venue up on the ground floor, which drove our community board crazy
Yes,
for at least 10 years.
that is correct.
There were huge events across from the Coliseum Park Apartments, 650 apartments right across the street.
It was the party hotel.
Party hotel, 4 in the morning,
Yeah,
rollouts, major presentations, you know, this product, that product, Madonna kind of stuff.
yeah,
We had these people at our community board meetings for 3 years without stop.
trying to yank a liquor license
Right.
so that they would stop all that.
So imagine if you were living in the building when that was happening on the sidewalk or in your house, going up to your apartment.
Yes, yes. Me personally, I was upset that they wouldn't invite me when the time came back. They never did, so. But anyway, no, it was tough. That was, Ian Schrager bought the building in about around the turn of the century and upgraded, and it was really a very nice hotel. I mean, it was
Well run.
really nice. Well,
It was the event.
but it was a party. It was tough. It was tough. But anyway, so then, they then sold the building to another hotel operator. And then that brings us to COVID times when they ceased operations. All the hotel staff was laid off. 5 or 6 months later, they just folded, went bankrupt. And the lender took possession of the property. They tried to find a buyer. They didn't accomplish that until May of 2022. So basically, the building was empty. This is a 24-story, 1,000-room building that was practically empty.
Except for the 24 apartments.
Right, there are actually currently 30 tenants,
Right.
10 full-time tenants in this huge building, so that was kind of weird also. But anyway, so in May 2022, the Smekey brothers from a very prominent family from Mexico bought the building. They bought it for a steal. I think the underlying mortgage was somewhere around $500 million, and they $200 million, something like that. And the interesting thing is in June 2022, they started demolition right away, within 30.
You gotta clarify, we're not talking demolishing the building, internal demolition.
Internal,
It's not the,
thank you for the clarification.
very important.
Demolishing everything that was the hotel. And they started in the lower floors and they just went up, and they were just demolishing. So it was the 5th floor, they might have been there 50 hotel rooms, they just demolished all the hotel rooms, and then move up to the 6th floor and so forth and so on.
Were the tenants, consolidated the apartments, or are they throughout the building?
Throughout the building, which made it very tough, and it's gonna bring up some issues that I'll show later. So they started the demolition even before they had a tenant protection plan,
Which is required
which is
by law.
required by DOB, I believe.
By Department of
requires
Justice.
it. So to us, it was very strange that they got DOB permits without a TPP. They finally presented it to us in mid-July. And in that meeting, they stated unequivocally that, and I'll show you in the next slide, that their intent was to take all the vacant affordable housing units, convert them to market rate. Which surprised me, because I didn't think that could be done. But anyway, so that's what they presented. Then, in December, towards the beginning of December, we got contacted by HPD, that telling us that the owner was applying for a certificate of no harassment. So that's when it really got interesting. Here is a copy of the architect's tenant protection plan that they presented in June. This is just the
narrative.
the first page of it. It's like a 5-6 page document. And in it, they state clearly that they are going to modify the floor plans to convert the SRO rooms into apartments. It's not like
Which they can do legally after they go through multiple steps.
Correct, but that was their intent from the very beginning. They did an inventory of what the SRO rooms are, and that goes to your question, Jessica. As you'll see, there were some SROs in the 15th floor, the 17th, 18th, 19th, 20th. Most of them were in the higher floors, 21st and 22nd floors.
Sorry.
The size of the rooms, how big were they?
Mostly one or two rooms. All of them.
Wide range, you know.
Yeah,
Average,
I would say average perhaps 300 square feet. My apartment is about 600 square feet, and the largest might be like 800 square feet.
bathrooms inside.
Bathrooms, kitchens.
So this was like the residence that had been changed over decades and decades. And depending upon the use, like it was hospital, they might take 2 rooms, put them together, because there was gonna be a family staying there or a couple. So it was.
It was a hodgepodge.
Exactly, right. It wasn't like.
Very different.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm a little bit lost. So, this letter says that there were some vacant SRO rooms that apparently they're gonna charge in.
Everything is an SRO room. Legally, it's everything, whether it was a hotel room, it remained an SRO room. It never got changed on the C of O.
Single room occupancy.
Yeah. That's what you're.
Okay, I'm trying to understand this letter, and the numbers that were given to us earlier. So apparently it's saying that a bunch of them, they're leaving alone, but then some, which I guess they were calling the vacant ones, they're changing into apartments. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then, okay.
And their math is wrong, by the way. When they did this so fast, that their math is actually wrong. There weren't that many SRO rooms that were occupied or like that. So anyway, but this is what they.
No, but it's not speaking to what's occupied. It speaks to, because the person who did it didn't know what they were doing, it speaks to the classification. These are all this building, although they had bathrooms inside, was still maintained a Class B SRO room designation. It never got changed, because you could take that kind of residence and make it into a hotel with no need to change to see about it. So they said this, and they were not clear if they were writing, but I've seen some of these docs. Keep going, keep us going.
Right.
Go ahead.
So this again is just, this is what they presented to the tenants in mid-July, when the demolition had already started, okay? So we haven't made any input, this is them telling us what they're going to do. Then we had our first meeting with them, our first formal meeting was on July 13th. And down at the bottom, you know, we talk about, we asked, among many other things, is your intention to convert the vacant SRO rooms into market rate? And they stated, yes, that's exactly what they intended to do.
Which they can legally do.
Which they can legally do. If they get a certificate of no harassment, it's my.
Right, no, there's more
Right.
compensation, but if they legally, there's no bar to that.
Right, exactly.
There's a bunch of steps you must go through to get there.
Exactly. So
Now,
then in December of 2022, so there already been 6 months in the internal demolition. Finally, HPD contacts us to let us know that they have applied for a certificate of no harassment. It's dated the 2nd and the times.
and I want to stop you there now. It's clear under the zoning resolution, you cannot do any construction in the building in the special zoning district. That's what this is in the district. It's not just an SRO without getting a certificate of no harassment. So
Now they can't do anything, right?
Yeah.
That was my
Right.
understanding.
So, no, you can do renovation internally, you can put it in your kitchen, you cannot remove walls, you cannot do the demolition they did, right? So what happened here is, this is where the community board starts getting involved, I believe, this
A
juncture.
little bit later, a little bit. The next slide.
A little bit later,
Yeah.
but this was very odd because why was HPD saying the owner seeking certificate of harassment? When in fact, Department of Buildings has issued permits
That's what maybe it should.
to do internal demolition. Take it again, let's move ahead, we gotta keep moving on, keep going.
Correct. So here brings us to the demolition.
Right.
On February 6th, they started on the first floor, started moving up. By February of 2023, they've gotten to the high floors, the 22nd and the 23rd floor, and they tell us, we're gonna go in and we're gonna start demolishing the work there. And you see on the 22nd floor, vacant rooms and the entire 23rd
We're
floor.
going to install steel. This is construction.
Totally.
There still is no certificate of no harassment issued at this
Right.
point.
Right, and this is, I think, about the time that the owner met with you and Maria. And I think they were saying one thing and yet demolishing on the other.
We had a Zoom meeting and Jesse set up to present what was happening. And the questions we kept asking were, but how are you doing construction work without certificate of harassment? And the answer was, we're just doing repairs. Because there's been these problems with the plumbing, we're doing plumbing. And as they talked more, it didn't make sense. And then we did reach out through Gail Brewer's office to the tenants.
Yes.
And now, are some pictures coming up?
Yeah, they're coming up.
I need the pictures of what we.
So, but I just wanted to set that
Yeah, yeah.
timeline and set the context and the irregularities that happened right from the very beginning. So the question then becomes, the reason that I'm presenting this is because the tenants have asked for a letter of support from the committee and the board in terms of writing to HPD, asking for them to deny the certificate of no harassment. So the question becomes, well, have the residents, have I been harassed? And based on the definition, this is a piece from the letter that I showed you a couple of slides before. It says, harassment can mean many things, such as the owner not providing essential services like heating and hot water, or it's any behavior by the owners or their employees that would cause the tenants to want to leave their units. So, I guess some pictures would help in terms of what that might be. The first one here, water shutdowns. Constant and continuous water shutdowns. They're supposed to, according to the TPP, give us 48-hour notice. Right here, you see, tomorrow, we're gonna shut it down. And notice the date, November 23rd, the day before Thanksgiving. My wife was fit to be tied. Let's see, can we see
Yes.
Interesting, yeah.
Water outages all the time. This is my kitchen. Happens continuously, constantly to this day. And then when the water comes back, this is the way it comes back.
Oxidation.
And we all know that, yeah.
You have excellent,
Not drinkable.
Yeah,
that's
pretty good
not-
documentation. Keep going, pretty good documentation.
So, not drinkable.
We don't get a lot of videos in this committee.
Also, the issues with electricity, shutdowns, outages, all kinds of problems. You'll notice here, for example, they informed us that on May 10th, they were gonna be shutting down from 7 AM to 3 PM. That's an 8-hour shutdown.
Right.
You all probably know that refrigerated food begins to spoil after 4 hours. This shutdown actually lasted 12 hours. So it's been tough. And then the outages are continuous, constant. This happens in my room all the time. It's that kind of a situation. Whoops. Next one.
Page down there.
Yeah. Another problem is the incompetent pest control.
We have seen pictures like this before.
Well, you
Yeah.
even warned me, I have a problem with rats.
It's
I
not-
know, man.
And
I think for all of this message that's been delivered, let's go to the next slide.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I've done this all the time, I don't think twice about it, many people don't. Okay, keep going, yes.
But I think that the most.
Lead paint.
The most troubling part to me and many of the tenants is I don't want to say lying, but the outrageous lack of transparency, perhaps might be a more diplomatic way of saying it. This here was one of the tenants is the lady who has 3 children. One is a teenager, another one is a 2-year-old, and she just gave birth a couple of weeks ago. She was very worried about the lead. She was the one SRO who is on the 15th floor, which she was the only one there. And she was extremely worried about the lead because her 2-year-old would go crawling out and, would put things in her mouth. And they kept saying, no, there's no problem with lead. There's no such thing, no problem. She took it upon herself to convince the Department of Health to go out there and do a strike. They did it. The report, they took the sample on December 7th in the lower part of the screen. The report came out on the 20th of December. But if you'll notice up there, the owners did not inform the tenants until January 25th, or 1 month and 5 days after the report came out. And it's only because those two, that lady and another tenant, were really pushing hard and got the report from the Department of Health. And it was only until we showed them that they, okay, yeah, let's put it in the thing. So these are the issues with this tenant. He's not or they are not slum lords, but just so many irregularities and what really is important to them is to get this building up and running. It doesn't matter who they.
But how are they still doing work if there's no harassment?
Oh, they're working.
Illegally.
They're working. They're definitely.
Well, no, I think sometimes it's less illegally, and we have a problem with the Department of Buildings here, right? Because the Department of Buildings should be enforcing the zoning resolution, and the zoning resolution says you cannot do this degree of work if there is not a certificate of harassment issue.
Yeah. The Department of Health did issue a partial
Department of Buildings, stop work order.
The Department of Health actually did the stop work order because of the lead and the fact that there was a 2-year-old child on the 15th floor. But then the DOB did come by eventually, and they also actually it was with the help of Jesse Bodine and Jordan Feiner. And I think you were involved. Yes. So and they did do it. So they did stop that part.
Right.
But the work started up again maybe a couple of months ago. Then they're full blast. So basically, that's a very quick overview of what's been happening at the Hudson. We feel that we've been harassed and therefore we asked for the support in the letter to HPD denying them the certificate of non-harassment.
Let me just note that I think what we need to help us too, is I've seen from other members of your group, a lot of photos of construction.
Oh, yeah.
And we need those photos to attach to our letter because that degree of construction is simply not permitted under the special zoning district without the certificate of no harassment.
Right.
And those photos, when I got that first batch, I was like, how could you possibly have these? Here's a floor that's gutted and there's like 2 doors where people live. Like, this is not what you can do at all. So I think having that to attach to a letter is a very helpful role. And I know you have lots of photos.
Yes, but for expediency's sake,
No,
I would just do the, down to just a few slides. So, that basically is where we're at and
So let's take some questions. We'll take the presentation down to see the others.
so stop
Should we take
sharing.
the presentation? Yeah, stop sharing.
Yeah.
Still seems to be up.
Oh, I see.
Maria, you there?
Yes, I'm having a little bit of some connection issues, but I'm still here.
Yeah, we can't see anybody. We're trying to get the,
Sorry,
Oh,
it's,
I
sorry, no, I'm just gonna get rid of the power.
yeah.
oh, well,
No.
everyone is still on. I see them.
Yeah, Joe, we're all still here.
Great, just want to make sure you disappear into the ether over there. So, let's go around the room and get some quick reaction.
Or can we ask questions?
Of course.
So, I'm a little unclear. So are we writing, is one of the asks for us to write a letter to say like, hey, the rule should be applied here about no construction, right? So is that one of the asks?
I think we have a 2-letter
That's
ask
what it
here.
sounds like what it is.
This one letter ask is, hello, DOB, you're at it again, giving permits with a certificate of no harassment in place. Like, that's a sort of basic stuff. The work exceeds the degree of work requires a CONH to be in place prior to permit. Stop work on this building, period.
Or require the work to be stopped.
No, they stop it. DOB stops it.
All right.
They go and they put a stop work, they go and they put a stop work order and stops. We did this on 343 West 47th Street. Remember the whole horrible building with the demolition thing? We've done it in many buildings. But the other thing is writing and documenting to HPD, which is they're in their HPD is in their investigative phase of certificate of harassment. That means they speak to tenants, they speak to community, they speak to other officials, everybody to see what's happening here. I think it's an important role that you provide for the committee and the board, a timeline of construction, if you have construction permits, things that clearly say that the means and methods of construction here, even though not permitted, were clearly harassing tenants. The videos are actually great, but give the broader picture to see just how, I mean, this like entire floor is gutted while someone's living there. I mean, so keep going, Katie, and then go to Roberta.
No, I was just trying to understand, so it sounds like, so we're talking about 2 letters, one to DOB saying that there should be a stop work order issued, and one to HPD saying they should.
That from information submitted to us, we support the tenants, that we believe the tenants are being harassed here.
And not to issue the certificate of no harassment.
Well, we just have to say that they've been harassed. That's
So,
it's say to do something.
because once the landlord gets if they were to get the CONH, it's pretty much game over. I mean, there's very little that.
But if they do not get it and there's a finding, that means they have to go and submit an affordable housing plan.
Exactly.
It's a cure for harassment, they gotta do this.
And also, we're talking about preserving 24 vacant SMR rooms, right, that could be made available to the community. Right?
Vacant.
It's the.
They're vacant, they're demolished, but they were vacant.
No, you have the current people who are living there.
No, we have 30 households.
Right, so we want to know, we want to preserve the 30 occupied units
Yes.
and they should consider this actions to constitute harassment. I mean, it really is. It's causing people to leave. Because harassment is defined in the zoning resolution, and it's very specific. It's not just you beat somebody up. It's creating a situation. There's a whole section that says, here's what harassment is. So it's not like it's a big stretch. Yes, Lord.
So then, it sounds like there might be a tiny discrepancy with the ask. The ask is both about the 30 occupied and about the 24 not demolished vacant SROs.
No, none of the 30 occupied tenants have ever been put at risk in terms of that they're gonna get evicted or anything like that.
No.
Never, they've never.
You're not, okay, you're being way too narrow. When they do the harassment investigation, it is not about I'm evicting you. It's about causing conditions for people to leave and live in hazardous circumstances. That is clearly defined.
Yes.
In the
And that lady that I told you about, pregnant and just gave birth, she's actually moved out. She had to move out. It was too unsafe.
Right. You create conditions in order to get people out of a building. That's
But there's the 24 not demolished are separate.
I don't think we even have an ask about. We didn't have an ask about the
Right,
24.
there's no ask about them.
No.
Okay, that's just what I wanted to,
Yeah.
one of the things I was to clarify.
Well, unless, I mean, I'm hoping that we preserve those.
See, but the point of it is, there is no law to preserve vacant SRO units. It doesn't exist. A certificate of no harassment gets issued, and then you can do what you want. Or if it doesn't get issued under the SRO law, you must keep the building in SRO for 3 years. Under the special district, you must provide 20% of the floor area of the building for permanent affordable housing. Those are the only two options.
You can't force them to rent them to.
No, you don't force anybody. You must provide it as permanent affordable housing, and then they get put out through a lottery. I think it's part.
And but those SRO units, in theory, if that agreement were to be reached, could be part of that floor area as SRO units or.
Maybe yes, there is a full review by Department of HPD that looks at design and figures out meet the standard. In other words, the units that are created for affordable housing must meet a whole bunch of standards.
So that, yeah, it couldn't be effectively like an old SRO unit. It would have to meet all of the standards.
You have to have an ADA accessible bathroom,
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. Yeah.
But if it's in a special district, then by definition, don't they have to do 20% for affordable?
No, if you have a finding of harassment,
Oh, only if you have a.
finding of harassment, then you are required to do 20% of the floor area of the entire building, the residential floor area, as permanent affordable housing, and go through an entire plan review. Remember, we've done inclusionary plan reviews here before, just like that. It's a full thing.
And then,
Sorry.
I guess the third question, so it's good that we cleared all of those things up. The third would just be, we maybe have spoken with the Department of Buildings before as to why they erred in issuing initial permits here.
Did we ever?
I'm not certain. It seemed that there was interest in making that inquiry because frankly, it is an issue if you have project managers or whoever is authorizing these permits being unaware of
They erred. They noted they erred. They made an error. But this is an ongoing problem with DOB that.
Is it a lack of knowledge on the part of the project manager? I'm uncertain as to what is systematically going wrong, but if it's systematically happening, I mean, I do think that they should probably do something about it.
I will give you an example. I have a fully occupied building that we work on. We are not moving any walls, anything. We're working on the facade. We were told we had to go and get a certificate of no harassment. It's a different level of alteration, all 2 versus 1. You're not required, but you're not touching anything. And that took like 6 weeks to straighten out. It's like, we're not inside. We're replacing windows, but it's taking window out. Like, it was sort of like, the people truly did not know. So this is a moment
The
for.
systemic issue is a lack of knowledge, not an inconsistent, like, people are not looking at this thing, it seems.
They were down 40% at DOB, and the new hires did not have knowledge of the building.
I think what Roberta was hoping would be. this checkbox to know, and so if we could address that and bring attention to it, then all these other things, but it sounds like that's not.
Yes, I mean, it could also, it's obviously hard to put more burden on agencies, but it is worthwhile noting, you know, the folks who are working at DOB clearly don't have an understanding of the.
So yeah, no, we should recommend right to DOBs, but
It is a problem.
Roberta, I have never, in my design, that if you put a new window in, you have to see from harassment, it's like not even a question, you know, like a. So, other questions?
No, well, Joe, I wanted a clarification. My understanding is that HPD does not grant them a certificate of no harassment. That doesn't mean that they are
No.
being slapped with a harassment.
No,
and
no, no.
therefore the 28.
No, they make a finding.
They make a finding?
There's a finding through the Office of Administrative Tribunals and Hearings.
But then you go to negotiation.
No negotiation, there's a finding.
Okay.
And the Office of Administrative. The Office of Administrative and Tribunals and Hearings, right, makes a finding, harassment has occurred in this building. And the only way then you can alter your building or do renovations is you must go through a process with HPD to come up with a low income housing plan showing that there will be 28% of the floor area, residential floor area of that building in perpetuity for a whole, we reviewed 517, 540, 25 West 45th Street, the building that came to us a couple months ago, went through a whole plan to cure it, and then we had the issue where, and here's Jessica's point, where the people at HPD, even though they didn't comply with the plan, said, go ahead and rent the apartments, like, who the hell's heard of this stuff before, you know what I mean, like, they didn't know that, like, they didn't know the connection of things, right? So you cannot proceed at all.
I was under the impression that if HPD does not grant the CONH, the landlord still has the opportunity to cure whatever the issue was before.
No, the cure is embodied in the zoning resolution. And the cure for harassment, 96-110 of the zoning resolution is you must go and present an affordable housing plan to HPD, get reviewed, have this done, and then HPD signs off on it. And only then you get a building permit. Because that's part of your requirement, you know, to get a building approval. It's part of it.
So maybe we should copy the owner on these letters.
We're always gonna copy the owner.
You know, they should be aware of the risk to them. Because
I'm pretty sure they're aware of the risks to them. They're just trying to play the risk out.
Really? They're trying to play out the risk. Okay.
Can I
Yes,
something, you know?
Because we've been through this Pete's been in this many times. You know.
Matter of fact, I'm still going through this.
Yeah.
I had my landlord in court and pretty much the same situation where the tenants were there and then no services, nothing was provided. The place was run down. And began to push some of the tenants out. Didn't even bother renting out any of the units. And these are SROs, the bathrooms and the showers are outside. What we're going through now, pretty much the same thing. A lot of the tenants eventually they left. The females usually leave first because they can't deal with the situation. And to help the landlord get rid of the remaining tenants, he would reach out to a nonprofit organization.
He brought in support housing, mentally ill individuals who are not managed or supervised, who created huge issues. And then basically put other people out because the building became so unsafe, because the group that was managing it was not managing it at all in this case. It was really, this was a very bad thing. We had police involved.
Yeah.
Serious police activity. Pete almost got shot.
Yeah. And a matter of fact, within the last 6 months, I actually assaulted and another tenant assaulted by a tenant that came in when I home the services. And the tenant didn't even know the address of the building that he was in. You have situations.
People are low functioning that should be supervised residents.
So now you have less tenants in the building and it's very hard because, you know, you got so many issues and you don't know where to grab, and buildings department doesn't know, HPD doesn't know anything.
Back to our subject here, similar, but so we're talking about any questions for our rule about this, how this process works. I mean, I guess we're writing to DOB and we're writing to HPD. These are 2 letters, like Katie noted. Questions or comments?
So the expectation hopefully is that will be a stop work order, right?
That will be one of our asks.
And a denial of the certificate of harassment, right? That's the goal. Okay. Just one question.
No question. I would be prepared to make a motion.
I am sorry. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Paul. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, Joe, quickly, if anybody knows or has a hint about what these fellows from Mexico want to do with the building eventually. Do they want another boutique hotel, the luxury housing, or what? Do we know?
Jesse, Maria, and I were in a meeting with them, and
Yeah.
their goal was to keep all the current tenants there and to renovate the buildings for small market rate apartments for new people to the city. That's the phrase they use.
Well, I'm wondering, this sounds like maybe the cause of affordable housing units has its foot in the door. And maybe have we ever had a situation where a developer could be lured onto the right path and say, look, this is the way when this could be just another case of Trumpian willful ignorance. We didn't know. It sounds like that's going on at DOB too. But hasn't happened. Pardon?
I just want to, we did some due diligence on the owners. They're one of the wealthiest families in Mexico. So they have incredible deep resources. And that is one of the issues we're having here, that they're not familiar with rules, regulations, but also if you have resources in Mexico, rules and regulations are not really things that apply to you. It's just a different approach.
Well, I just have one other question, Joe. Did the architect's name on the page describing the work ring a bell with you? I don't know them. I don't. Is this someone who is likely to be playing along and another case of willful ignorance, or giving them bad advice, or someone else giving him bad advice? It just seems. Again,
I think it's a classic case of money trying to achieve option, trying to keep an outcome.
Yeah.
But to be clear, Paul, these owners cannot claim ignorance or no knowledge of how real estate works in New York.
They're large.
Because they own many other buildings.
They're large property owners.
Several buildings in Brooklyn, others in Manhattan, in Philadelphia. They're very large property owners. So they've been around. I mean, they know their stuff.
Yeah. Thanks.
Let's go to Travis. Thoughts?
I support the letter again. I mean, the photos and the videos were enough for me, especially.
You haven't seen the bad photos yet.
Oh, I'm saying the rat photos from Maria. I mean, that did it for me too.
Aurora?
Yes, I'm in support of the letter. I completely agree with you, what you said, Joe, about the rules and regulations and how they differ between probably the United States and Mexico. And I know from my own experience in working that is true. And I'm sure this is a very special case where rules are being implemented.
Welcome.
Let's go with the letter. I've seen it.
Maria Ortiz, you have the last word on this one.
Thanks. To be clear, we are still talking a letter to DOB and a letter to HPD.
Yes.
Okay. And who is writing that letter?
I will be working on those, so that's the special district map that I spent a lot of time on.
I think we have so many letters this month. I think I need to I'm thinking about
Yeah.
which one am I picking to help out on? I would like to participate in this one.
I'd like to first get to the end of this conversation, then we can get the assignments figured out, okay? So I think we're in the.
I'm jumping the gun. I'm sorry, Joe. I'm sorry.
That we're writing 2 letters on this one. So then to do a recap, we're writing a letter to HPD and to about certificate of harassment and to DOB on this one. For 410, 412, we're writing a letter to HPD, we're writing a letter to the owners, and we're writing a letter to DOB. No, not DOB. The chief administrative judge, right? And then, can I remember back to our first subject? Yes, our first subject is about intro 1099. We're writing a letter about that. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 coming out of committee. Is that correct?
Who are we addressing the 1099 letter to?
Yeah,
council generally.
Yeah, I think, no, to the speaker. Adrian now, because she's the one managing the agenda. Yes.
Need to make a motion on 353 West.
Please.
Yes, so a motion to write 2 letters, one to DOB, one to HPD. I think setting, HPD, excuse me, DOB is stop work order. HPD is to look into this harassment.
Well, it sounds like we had said earlier that it's specifically to say that we believe that the tenants have been harassed.
Right. That given information.
To deny it.
Given to the information presented to the board and the documentation, we, the tenants have been harassed, adding our voice to that, the normal due diligence they would do.
And to deny it.
Yeah.
Yep. Second.
And again, just to note, all these will be going to new business because we're one short of a quorum, PA for us. And let's just note now that the first letter 1099 is Rachel and Katie, right?
Yeah.
The ones for 410, 412, Maria, I'm gonna need to take the lead on that and draft some other committee members in during that. Would you be able to?
I'm happy to
Help on that one, okay. So, and again,
Who said that?
It's me.
Katie, it's Katie.
No, it's Roberta.
Oh my God, almighty. I didn't do the whole night. I did
Joe
it once.
did it together.
I got through the whole night. It was Roberta. Like an ounce.
Thank you, Roberta. All right, so I'm gonna, I know.
Roberta.
I'll be in.
And we'll also get a lot of information that the board has already, there's a lot of text, Roberta, let's get
Yeah,
that.
I read the letter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's even earlier.
There's more, yeah.
There's more, there's so much of this.
I love that.
Yeah, okay. And then I'll work on the other two, which is back and forth. I think we are done for this evening. I would like to let everybody know that we postponed Chelsea NYCHA discussion specifically. This is a room, could not accommodate the number of people who want to come. The next discussion of Chelsea NYCHA will be at Chelsea land use happening on the 18th. On the 18th, the location to be determined because we're shopping, we did all day shopping for a venue. There's air conditioning and a good sound system. We're working on that. No, just that committee, but then this committee will be taking up on October 5th.
Yeah.
October 5th, Chelsea NYCHA again, at a venue that will be full of air conditioning and a lot of seats and a sound system that works.
Joe, on the Hudson Hotel, the vote would be unanimous.
No.
Right? Present, not
No,
eligible, right? So, present.
And can I just, in connection with the next two meetings, I'm wondering if if we're seeking the guidance from the borough president's office or from somebody to try and figure out. I know you weren't present last night, but.
I got a full briefing.
Yes, so there were a lot of management issues, right? And I guess I'm just wondering, are we seeking guidance as to sort of how?
No, we've done this. I mentioned to a few members before you came, we've seen this before. We once had a meeting at Fulton Center where the Department of Homeless Services decided it was going to convert the Maritime Hotel to a 450 room shelter across the street from Fulton houses. And almost all of Fulton houses came down for a meeting. 500 people, 600 people, and the 10th precinct was very involved.
Are you asking if the management of the meeting in terms of the how vocal and like from that side, or do you mean management like NYCHA? I'm just not clear. Management.
I guess I'm wondering about sort of what steps are being recommended, or are we seeking advice about how we can make sure that anybody who speaks from any position on any topic will have the opportunity to feel heard and respected.
Yes, we have to get a sound system that works. We have to have a place that is well air conditioned. And then we have to, we're going to talk to Jesse about this today. We have to have a few members managing the crowd. Happens all the time. You haven't been on the board. You haven't been on the board in the in-person stuff. We've had serious pile of people show up.
I think you're raising an important point. Clearly, yesterday was very challenging for all of us, I think, and for the people, everybody who wanted to speak and maybe couldn't, or did and had to talk over, etc. I think Jesse and the committee chairs are spending time in the next 10 days trying to figure this out.
Yeah.
And also,
it's gonna be challenging. And
Oh, yeah,
so-
it's gonna be, our board has gone through, Hudson Hotel. At least 30 to 40 or 50 people would show up, and there'd be moments where, and these were predominantly super middle class residents, they would be screaming like animals because they couldn't sleep. And they would interrupt, like, who are you know, do you like this sort of like constant like that? And we just haven't had that experience because we've been so remote, remote, meaning virtual and not in the room. And I would say if any issue we're gonna be dealing with in the next year and a half, this will be up there with the most explosive, contentious discussion for the simple reason, whether you like it or not, it's about the future of people's homes and those homes being demolished, being rebuilt, whatever it is, it's about change it's about a level of change that we have not really engaged with on our board in a number of years.
Yeah.
Like the West Side Stadium, we would have at least, I don't know, 150 people show up at every meeting. Even though they were not on the agenda, they would still talk about it and scream and they would, you know.
But there's no question. there.
Excuse me.
Passions are running high. I just want to make sure. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, I'm sorry, I was just gonna say that Jessica and I spoke about it a little bit yesterday, and I was just gonna reiterate what Jessica already said, which is that we are gonna have a discussion about it in the next several days.
Yeah.
Cool, all right.
That, you know, if I'm advocating for that discussion to be offline, so that.
Oh, yeah.
Because I see it's 8:48.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's gotta be, yes, Roberta.
I'm gonna try.
Your name is Roberta.
Yes. And the request that I would like to make is that there not be allowed like amplified noise instruments like air horns and such things. I think it's like an appropriate ask for the public. It was highly disruptive and it seemed like something that would be possible to limit.
You actually came in at the tail end, a number of tenants, people showed up today, and I was very specific, I said, I heard you're very thoughtful, stuff, whatever, but I think you need to let your colleagues know, it doesn't help to disrupt, scream. The bottom line is that this is a contentious discussion, and it's gonna be, and we have to have the toughest skin going forward as community board members.
And some of them seemed to recognize that, and then they were trying to persuade the others to just to be,
Yeah.
But Joe, I'm sorry. not to-
But let me just say
Also,
one thing.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt? I just want to make a request that if you guys do have suggestions about the next NYCHA meeting, if you can, you know, shoot an email to Jesse so that when we do have the discussion, it can come up and title the email, you know, suggestions for the next NYCHA meeting. Because I think the other ideas and suggestions might be useful. And I know Aurora wanted to say something also, and Hector. And
I was gonna turn to Hector one thing, because Hector did see me I had to manage this during the Chelsea NYCHA working group. And there were some serious disruptions. And we all worked together as a group to manage disruptions, to make sure that voices got heard, as opposed to just disruptions.
Well, also just to make a comment, I mean, it was pretty bad last night. We got physical at some points. I mean, we had people getting physically harassed. And we even had some politicians where items were thrown at them. Okay, so what, I mean, some expectations have to be set and guidelines to say, hey, once this happens, what do? You have, you know, police intercede?
Okay, I'm gonna say again, we pretty much avoided dealing with police.
I understand that.
And you have to engage with people directly and be very upfront. And I think we have the ability as a community to manage and police ourselves.
But we're dealing with people that are literally unstable here.
I'm sorry, I've been trying to raise my hand for a little bit. I know I had spoken to Maria and Hector about this, and I can send this to Jesse in an email, but I think the overarching theme here is that we're dealing with some people who have mental health disabilities, right? Like we had a manic episode, and I think that was like very prevalent with what was going on last night. That was very severe. I'm sure you're having some of those at other meetings as well. So how do you de-escalate? I think we all need to learn how to de-escalate in those moments, not just for ourselves as a committee, but also for the politicians that we're inviting to these committee meetings and full board meetings. So perhaps we can all talk about that at some point as well.
It is going to be an ongoing struggle to manage the degree of passion and contention in disagreement.
Yeah.
And that's to me, that's called a community board. We just haven't had to do it in a long time. And by the way, people with mental health issues, I've never met someone like that, right? Yes, yeah, I think we can all get, there are a number of us on this board.
Unfortunately, I have.
That was being ironic. I'm saying we have a lot of experienced members of the board who know how to de-escalate, manage, and deal with it. So we all got to be together and figure this out.
That's great, but my concern is the safety of people who are attending these meetings as well.
I think you're a little more, you're going over the top here for a moment.
I'm not going over the top, John. You got really.
Yeah.
You got very-
I understand that. I understand, but I'm saying again, don't immediately say that we're the ones having the trouble. People are trouble coming in and we have to work as a group to manage the trouble. That's all.
Well, I know we can handle it.
That
but I'm
very
concerned-
clear, like, I'm so sorry, Hector, I want to make it very clear, I'm not saying that we're the problem. We are not the problem, we acted in a completely, like, respectable manner. I mean, Hector got terrorized last night. That's not an underestimation for what happened to him. But just to know how to deal with it because it's provoking. Like it's triggering. I mean, I was getting angry listening to it, but I'm able to manage some of that frustration. So how do we have these skills and teach each other these skills when it escalates? That's really my point on it.
So I think we need to end our meeting here for tonight. Yes.
Actually, can I just,
Katie,
this is actually switching the topic. So this is just I don't know, like ask about maybe a topic at a future meeting. But I heard, but I don't know any details that the mayor announced yesterday or something that something may change about allowing more mixed housing or something. It sounds like it's in our district. I'm just wondering if we can.
It is going to the land use committees involved, both Chelsea Land Use and Clinton Hell's Kitchen Land Use, and it's about doing rezoning to allow residential in the Carmen Center and certain manufacturing zones in Midtown. And it's really, it's a land use map. Very good. It's about converting buildings.
Office buildings.
Mostly loft buildings, actually, there is mostly loft buildings. But the community board's got a briefing on it this afternoon. We saw it for the first time.
Okay.
And the majority of it is not in our district. The majority is in Ward 5. We have west side of 8th Avenue between 34th and 41st Street is in our district. And then a small portion in Chelsea in the west 20s, below 26th Street. But it's predominantly, it's really true land use matter. I think our committee might opine when they come talking about specifically inclusionary housing, how it gets done.
That's what I was wondering if any of that's been included.
Oh, no, it is being included. You can't be, that's the threshold. You can't do that unless you do affordable housing.
Right, so it is gonna come to our committee, just maybe not right away.
Right, and also a small piece of it, there's much broader issues, things like street walls, design, like this whole, they're doing a public realm improvement plan, things that are not coming here at all.
More land use.
Okay, so I have a motion that we adjourn for this evening, and we did it at 9 o'clock, which is not great, but not terrible.
8:55.
8:55. Roberta says 8:55. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Indeed.
Second, thank you all, folks.
Good night.
Thank you.
I know how it looks. I got it. I'll tell you. Just say leave.